Hello everyone, McGee here with another draft battle analysis video and recap, this time looking at my championship match in the PGF against LukeTime and his final Flareons. As it stands for this league, I was able to secure the #1 overall seed with a 10-1 record, having not lost since my week 1. Had a really solid semifinals performance, was able to secure a win there, and then Luke Time, who was the #2 overall seed going into playoffs, was able to win his semifinals match as well off of a really spicy set with his Leafeon, running a Sunny Day mixed set with Weather Ball to get past a couple of things weak to fire, and just kind of blow open his opponent's team with some really good play from his low tier Mons. So we entered this match having fought previously in the regular season. I was able to beat him either in a 3-0 or 4-0 victory, but it was much closer than the score indicated. Um, and so I'm looking to try to repeat that performance and claim my first championship crown in any sort of draft league. I've had a very rough go of it in playoffs. I've never won 2 playoff matches in a row in any league, usually bouncing out around semifinals, sometimes quarterfinals. But this is my first finals game I've ever been a part of. So I'm really excited about my chances going into this. Obviously, having come off a win, I know I can beat him. So it's just a matter of handling his adjustments going into the match. But before we dive into the match, we're going to take a look again at the team he had available to him and then the pieces I brought to best address it. So he has pretty much the same team that he had last time we fought. There was one small change in that he dropped his Thwacky for a Leafeon. Did not concern me. Thwacky was much more difficult for me to manage than his Leafeon was. His Leafeon just caused a lot more pressure, and so his Thwacky caused a lot more pressure, so I was very happy to see the Thwacky not an option for him to use in this matchup again. I just didn't have a good way to check it. I skirted disaster from it last time, so I was really happy that was gone. Leafeon feels much more manageable. It has a much shallower move pool, has no real pivot outside of Baton Pass, and no great coverage moves, really relying on like Leaf Blade and knockoff to do work. So I know what Leafeon's trying to do going into this matchup, and I feel better suited to handle it. Mew, Clefable, I've said it before, this is a very scary core, very difficult to deal with just because they have so much versatility to work with. There's a lot of setup sets with Mew. Things like Unaware Clef can be really scary setup sweeps. So I'm going to need to be extra cautious with what they're trying to do until I get a sense of their move pool. Salamence did not come last time. I think it has a solid matchup overall. The 100 speed tier is pretty scary. It has good coverage moves, has the ability to set up and sweep, although it does run into some trouble against the Umbreon, so that is kind of my saving grace. Empoleon, not easy for me to deal with. Empoleon also struggles to be effective in this matchup just because I have good cleric support and I have Rotom Wash that kind of forces the Empoleon out, can handle the hazards, and isn't scared by any of the stab moves Empoleon has. So it's not a mod I have an easy time with, but it also is not a mod that really scares me all too much. Palostand, not a great mod for him to bring. Doesn't really have anything it handles well. My electric type is also a water type, so it's not enjoying that. My water types are both special, so its ability has no value. Don't really anticipate that showing up. Galvantula didn't show up the first time. I feel like it has useful potential here. Just being a good web setter can kind of slow some things down, things like Greninja, which could be a problem for him. But I understand it's not overly popular of an option because 2 of my best pieces it has no way to deal with, that being the Rotom Wash and the Landorus, in terms of impacting them with the sticky webs, as they're both not impacted with that with the flying and levitate. Leafeon, I don't think it's going to come. It didn't strike me as something that would be great in this matchup, except as like a Rocky helmet set to just kind of shut down Mawile, because Mawile doesn't love 1v1ing that. You can go for some kind of Leech Seed Synthesis, Leaf Blade, Rocky Helmet set to just really slow me down and make it hard for Mawile to be effective, just because that 130 defense stat is a lot to push through. Pangoro, I think it has a good matchup. I don't have a clean switch into Pangoro, especially if it runs Gunk Shot like it should have in the last time we fought, because Gunk Shot just obliterates my Florges switch in who can handle the stab, and I have a hard time sending in Umbreon just because it's a close combat from death. So it's a really scary mon to address. Salazzle which absolutely terrifies me. I think it's just one of his best pieces on his team. I think it should always be there. I don't have great ways to deal with it. I bring one little extra piece of a way to address it in this matchup. I'll get to that in a few minutes as just something to kind of check its sub toxic set because that's a really hard set for me to address. I think if he had committed to it last time, he would have won. And so I need to try to have somewhat of a better answer going into this match. Chinchino really only scares me as a banded tail slapper just because that can break through Umbreon. There are other sets it can run. It can run a Scarf set to just make sure it's faster than everything. It can run a King's Rock set to play with flinch shenanigans. I've tried that before in a semifinals match. I was unsuccessful, so I know the frustration of that set and kind of your reliance on favorable RNG, but it can be something that's threatening. And then finally, which I don't think is greatly visible, the Mega Blastoise. It's a solid mon. It has good coverage moves with, Aura Sphere and Dark Pulse and Flash Cannon. Doesn't love the Rotom Wash matchup. Doesn't really have a way to hit it for super strong power. And my Rotom Wash, last time was specifically built to help address it. So as long as I keep my Rotom in good shape, I'm not super worried about Mega Blastoise, but we'll kind of explore that. So with that in mind, I will get to my team. These are, in fact, the same six I brought last time. There's going to be a very strong continuation with a lot of the move pools I was running in the last matchup, but there are some different elements I'm kind of bringing into this prep and trying to be more aware of. So with the Mega Mawile, I do opt to go with Iron Head this time over Swords Dance. I just felt that it was dangerous of me not to have that in the last matchup just because Clef is hard to deal with, and I needed to make sure I had all the firepower possible to try to push through that. So I felt that that would be a more appropriate move to bring this time, as I did not get that Swords Dance window last time, and I don't anticipate getting it this time. I think a little more speed just to account for extra Clef creep, because it might have been aware that it was outsped last time. Maybe it was trying to creep me last time and failed, so it might try to creep a little more. So I'm trying to creep extra creep, essentially. Landorus, pretty much the exact same set. A little more defense investment, I believe, or special defense investment, just to give it some bulk to come in on not Water Pulse from the Mega Blastoise or Flamethrower from the Salazzle and just have a little bit more survivability because it gets the Intimidate pressure to whittle down the physical attackers. I'm bringing Stealth Rock in this match instead of Knockoff just because I feel I have a way to kind of force the Salazzle out this time, and I'll get to that when we get down the field a bit. And so if I can force the Salazzle out, then I have Stealth Rocks in play, which can help me handle it from being super oppressive. And then otherwise, U-turn Earthquake Stone Edge just gets everything else I need to get. Umbreon, exact same set as last time, exact same spread, just making sure it's a defensive menace to handle a lot of his options. I'll go back to that for a second. It can check physical Mew. It can handle setup Salamence to stop that from being a problem. It can handle Leafeon from breaking me. It can do its best against Chinchino as long as it's not a ban. So it's overall well built to handle a lot of the physical pressure. And then Wish Protect as good, healing options, and then Heal Belt because I need a way to deal with Toxic Stall in case the Salazzle shows back up. The Rotom Wash, I am opting for a changeup in the Rotom Wash. Last time I just ran a leftover set. I believe Toxic was the last move and maybe Discharge as well. This time I'm opting for Defog and then pretty much a standard setup for a defensive Rotom, except I'm trying to trap something with a Scarf that I don't want to be a problem for me. I'm aware that he might try set up Mew, he might try set up Clefable, he might try set up Salamence. So being able to trick any of them with a Scarf and just shut down that setup would be really beneficial to me. Pretty much the exact same EV investment as last time. I did mention in the last battle that I had against him that I did not properly creep my Rotom Wash for the Pangoro. Did not want to make that mistake again, so this is a properly speed crept Rotom Wash to get past a Pangoro so that it doesn't outspeed me and KO me in case it shows up as a banded faster set because he could have outsped me last time. I'm really fortunate he didn't, and I just want to make sure he couldn't do that this time. The Greninja, this is the changeup I made to help me deal better with Salazzle, and the move is Water Shuriken. it was really helpful in my semifinals match. It helped clean up the end game, ensure I had speed priority to work with. In this matchup, I really need it for its multi-hit potential just to push through the Salazzle subs. I don't know if I think it might be close to roll range if a Water Shuriken will do 25% to break a sub. I know two will break a sub, so any extras will do more damage. So overall, it's a solid move to kind of keep Salazzle from subbing and staying behind a sub. This just kind of forces it out. And so on top of that, with the Landorus rocks, it just helped me check Salazzle better than I was checking it last time because I would have lost the toxic sub if he had done that. And then speed crept to get past, I believe it was the Salazzle, actually. 367 gets me past Salazzle, so I always go faster than it. In case I am in a position late game to lock onto Scald, I wanted to make sure I didn't have to deal with max speed Salazzle. And then finally, Florges, pretty much running the exact same stat. I think I put a little bit of speed creep on it this time, just in case something was trying to just creep past it. Something like the LaFable, something like Pangoro, in case Pangoro came back and didn't bring a lot of speed, just to put me in a good position to outspeed those. Otherwise, really bulky, really there to tank as best as possible, and then go for the same kind of setup set because his only great answer to that really is Empoleon. Salazzle can't switch in on me after +1. It can't one-hit KO me. I can one-hit KO it with Psychic, so I feel like I'm in a pretty good spot to be very effective with offensive Florges here if I can get it to take off. So that's it, team. This is pretty similar to what I brought last time. Slight modifications. The Rotom Wash is kind of the big one, just to trick trap something with the Rotom. I haven't played any trick shenanigans with the Rotom this season, so it's not something people are necessarily considering as a top of mind strategy for me, but I feel it can be effective in shutting down some of the setup sweep I know he has access to and he did not bring last time. So with that in mind, we're going to dive into this match. We'll play it at regular speed for now, and then we'll take things slower as necessary. I'm looking at the team preview. His team is fairly similar to last time. He does indeed bring the grass type again, which makes sense. I have two waters I want to bring to this matchup, and then a ground type that is neutral because of the flying. And then I just don't resist grass all that well, pretty much exclusively with the Mawile. So grass type matches up well against me, and he did well with his last grass type. So I'm not surprised to see the Leafeon kind of take the place of the Thwackey. He does make other changes though. He doesn't bring the Salazzle, which I do think is a mistake. My Greninja is there to help address it, but it still isn't a great switch in because what ends up happening is if Salazzle is going to be on the field and put out a toxic, even if I hard switch my Greninja in on that, it still eats the toxic, it still eats a turn of protect, and then all I'm able to do is basically force it out, and I lose 18% in the process to force it out. So it's not a long-term solution. And so I thought it could still be effective in this matchup, but I'm happy to not see it there. And then the Pangoro doesn't show up again. I'm not overly surprised. It Pangora's forced into a guessing game against my team. It can't click any one move absolutely safely. It can't click close combat safely because it has to deal with Florges and the Landorus. It can't click knockoff safely because it doesn't want to click knockoff if it's a choice lock, a knockoff into the Mega Mawile, as that's just going to leave me in a very good position to do some damage. It can't click Gunk Shot safely just because I have switch outs and the Mega Mawile, the Landorus, even the Umbreon to a degree. So it doesn't really love any of its choice locked moves. It kind of wants to be a choice banded Mon if it shows up too. So it just gets into a guessing game, and I understand him not wanting to do that. Where Salamence is just a little better positioned to be able to click buttons more freely. Outside of maybe the Florges, but it can still kind of skirt past that if it has the right coverage. So let's dive into this match. I am going to lead, I believe, my Rotom Wash. I was kind of hoping for a Clef lead. If Clef led, I could have just tricked it turn 1 and taken its item. I felt like that was a pretty solid position for me. Salamence leading, I can Volt Switch on that pretty freely or trick it. Mew leading, I can trick the Mew. So I wanted to try to go for a trick turn 1. Obviously can't trick a Leafeon in case it's going to Leaf Blade me, so I'm just going to Volt Switch out. I don't expect Scarf here. So I'm going to switch into the Mawile to get the Intimidate on. I don't expect he's going to do anything wild. If he uses a grass attack, it's not Mawile is not going to care. If he does knock off, Mawile is not going to care. So I felt like Mawile is a safe switch in. He Swords Dances here. I know from my experience in the past, I've used Leafeon in draft before. Leafeon has atrocious coverage moves. It's pretty much Leaf Blade in terms of attacking moves. Leaf Blade, X Scissor, Knockoff, and then the one move of note is Dig. That's its only ground move. That's its best way to deal with Steel and Fire is Dig. And so I know it has access to that move. The fact that it's set up on maybe an expected Mawile switch in kind of tells me that dig is a real possibility that this is running. So I'm going to do something extra cautious here because there's no real loss in this situation. My Landorus can pivot in pretty freely on this Leafeon. Worst case, I intimidate it while it uses Leaf Blade, and so it just comes back as a neutral attack, which is fine. Best case, I switch into Landorus and it goes for the Power Herb Dig set, which is exactly what it did. It was very specifically running that item to catch Mega Mawile off guard. I successfully called that, and so I was able to get my Landorus in for free. My expectation here is he's going to retreat with Leafeon because it's kind of lost its potency. I don't expect it to stay in, so I'm going to go with Stealth Rock, even though I'm choice locked right now. It Leaf Blades does a lot of damage. Obviously, it's got a 110 attack stat. It hurts. I don't want to eat that Leaf Blade all that much, so it does a lot. I can't attack again because I'm choice locked. I'm going to come back in with Mawile. He's going to Sword Stance again. I'm going to attack here because I figure I can handle a grass attack. He switches out, or he doesn't switch out. He digs, which surprises me because now it's a 2-turn motion. I think what he doesn't realize, and this is what's going to happen here, is when I switch into Landorus, Landorus still gets the Intimidate proc even though it's underground. My guess is that he didn't know that mechanic was going to come into play. I didn't know that mechanic was going to come into play. I thought he was actually going to be immune to the Intimidate while he was underground. So me still being able to get that Intimidate was actually pretty noteworthy. Kind of helps keep its power level in check. I have a free opportunity to U-turn here to just do a lot of damage. I'm going to go back into Mawile because I know he can't pressure Mawile that well. Leaf Blade does a decent chunk. I opt to go for Iron Head here just because I thought he would switch it out, but understandably it makes sense to sack the Leafeon at that point in the game. I should have maybe been more aggressive on the Sucker Punch call just because he doesn't really have a lot to preserve Leafeon for. The tech got exposed, the rocks are out, it doesn't seem to have any access to healing, so it was just kind of done, and he was willing to throw it away, which makes a lot of sense. Salamence comes in. Boots are revealed, which is good information to know. It's not going to be a scarf set, so that's good to know for Landorus's speed stat is that he's going to outspeed the Salamence, which is just noteworthy for me. Umbreon's a safe switch in on this because it doesn't have a good way to pressure Umbreon. It doesn't want a Toxic or T-Wave in Umbreon because it gets impacted by those as well with the Synchronize. The Clef gets rocks up while I get my Wish back. And then here's this really good tech here that he brings. Counter, which is just a really well thought out strategy. I expected he would have answers to Mega Mawile. Last time it was the Mew, a very defensive Mew with a Colbur Berry and Will-O-Wisp and Recover or Roost or whatever it was to kind of address it. I think that's still a better answer, but he uses the Clefable here as a check, which worked in his favor. There was obviously the 30% risk I flinch it here, and if I flinch the Clefable, then the Clefable is now useless because I outspeed it and I get it the next time. So it was in his favor to get what just happened, but obviously it still had risk as an answer, whereas B was a much safer answer that I couldn't as easily break. And so really happy to get, or he should be really happy to get my Mega Mawile out of the field this early. It was a really smart play by him. And then on top of that, he gets rocks down, which is obviously in his favor as well. So I lose Mega Mawile early. Unexpected, really good play on his part. I'm coming in with my Rotom here. The reason being is I don't feel comfortable about being able to KO it with any one mon or not give at least a free switch in for something else. And so the thing I want to do here to just kind of handle this best is I want to get rid of this scarf onto something I feel I can get it with that would not want it. Rotom isn't going to bait in the Blastoise, and so I feel like I can pretty safely trick this scarf and just kind of shut something down, which could be helpful for creating a window for something like Florges to set up with. He opts to send a Salamence in. I'm quite content actually giving this to a Salamence. I don't mind. I'm going to defog here, and then I know he's choice locked now. He knows he's choice locked in a Dragon Claw now. The obvious expectation is that I would bring in Florges as the way to be immune to that. It seems such an obvious call by me that I don't want to do it. He's a really good player. He understands what the situation is for his Salamence being choice locked. So I'm going to aggressively stay in and click Volt Switch on the expectation he switches out on a predicted Florges switch in. So Clefable comes in. I'm going to Volt Switch here. Crit's nice, doesn't really make that huge of a difference. The big thing perhaps is that I can U-turn pretty reliably to get this 1% damage and get the KO. I'm going to come in with Greninja. Reason being is that nothing really wants to come in on Greninja. Blastoise is probably the best switch in. The Mew set doesn't want any sort of dark attacks, probably. Salamence will go faster, but I have easy switch outs from that, and then I outspeed the Chinchino unless it's Scarfed. All good reasons for Greninja to be happy right now. Blastoise comes in. I don't have my pivot access this game, which is unfortunate. I know it has Aura Sphere access. I expected to click Aura Sphere here. It's just the best move it can click. And so Florges was an easy switch in on that. This is a really good window to calm mind. Unfortunately, I get crit here. It's okay. The crit plus after the crit and with my boost, I'm in a pretty good spot to survive this next flash cannon. It just can't high roll. And it doesn't, 28%. That's fine. I'm going to recover here, get my health back to 63, feeling really good about this situation because he doesn't have Empoleon. He doesn't have anything that would scare me. The Clefable, if it was maybe an unaware set, it doesn't matter. The Clefable's gone. The Chinchino is some concern still. A bandit set could cause a lot of issue, but there isn't a lot to manage this. There is no Salazzle here to pressure me with poison. There is no Leafeon to pressure me with a really strong physical grass. There's no Empoleon to shut down my Moonblast Psychic combination. So I feel really, really good about this damage output potential. And I feel like Florges is actually in a spot to finish this game out. Unfortunately, he gets his second crit in 3 turns on the Florges and it goes down. So really unfortunate loss of momentum by me because I had a really great position at that point. I thought I was in a really prime position to sweep this game out. I didn't think he was going to have a switch in soon. I think I was going to do some massive damage to the Mega Blastoise, and so it just went down really early, which was really unfortunate. 2 crits in 3 turns, I can't control that. He can't control that. Just unfortunate. I bring Rotom in. I figure I can bait Blastoise out on a Volt Switch and get momentum back on my side to create a window for either the Landorus or the Greninja to get back in here safely. He elects to stay in. It catches me by surprise. I know he's not likely to click a water move there. Water Pulse was just a big gamble. I ran Discharge a lot in my last match against him, so he knows I might be running Discharge again, so he doesn't go to be in a great spot to call a Volt Switch predict just because there's high risk to being wrong and just giving my Rotom an extra turn to do something for free. So he elects for the safer call and runs Aura Sphere, which is great for me. Now I'm able to force it out. The Salamence comes in here, which is fine. I know it's choice locked. I know Umbreon's in a really good spot to handle that. So I'm just going to have my Umbreon hit the field. I'm going to have my Umbreon click Wish because it's in a good spot to click Wish here. And that way I can kind of scout what comes in. Chinchino comes in, which is fine with me. Umbreon can wall this out all day. Looking at the damage output on this, it's pretty apparent to me that this is not a banded Chinchino. Banded Chinchino actually is in a position to two-hit KO me. So the fact that it's not hitting that damage output shows that it's not banded. This is something I missed in our initial battle, and it could have really been impactful. I didn't observe the flinch occur. I was clicking Wish on this turn, so I wasn't expecting to do damage to the Chinchino. I, in fact, had thought it was a Scarf Chinchino, not a King's Rock Chinchino. I just wasn't paying attention closely. So I thought my wish had gone off successfully and that the Chinchino was going to die next turn while I got most of my health back. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. I had gotten flinched. It goes for more tail slaps here. It does a bunch more damage. Thankfully, I'm not going to get caught by the King's Rock again, and I'm going to take care of the Chinchino. I just don't get a lot of my health back, which is obviously a concern. I'm going to protect here, scout out Aura Sphere. That's the obvious move it wants to click. I want to get some health back. Every little bit could be impactful here, especially when I still need to deal with Salamence, and Umbreon's my best answer to that. So just getting a little bit of extra bulk is very helpful to me. So I know it has water moves. I know he is probably expecting me to switch into Landorus. That's the safe call in an Aura Sphere. It did 25% last time. I have 29%. So there's a real chance I live that Aura Sphere. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm, in fact, instead going to hard switch into the Rotom Wash, expecting a Water Pulse to come out just for the Landorus, which is exactly what comes out. It is a Water Pulse, in fact. And then I thankfully don't get impacted by that RNG. I get the Volt Switch off, and then I'm going to go into Landorus. At this point, he probably should have clicked Water Pulse again. It was clearly in roll range, and he needs to get momentum back. So I think it would have been a better call to click Water Pulse there because I didn't have a great switch in on this Blastoise if I clicked Volt Switch. And I've already shown 3 moves, and I haven't shown Hydro Pump. So I think it was in his best interest to just water pulse again on the expected switch out and see what came in because that was just going to do more damage. But he aura spheres, which is really helpful to me because I live on 3%. And then now I get to click U-turn for free, get momentum back. Really, really helpful thing here is that I get to get Umbreon back in, who I know can safely wish in front of the Salamence. I'm just in a really good spot to do it. I'm going to elect to go straight into the Greninja here. I know from past experience with Mew, you can't give it passive turns. You can't give it foul play damage that it may not care about. Um, because what I don't want to do here is accidentally set off a weakness policy and give it a lot of strength just because I don't know what set it is yet, and I want to be cautious. And I can't pivot out. So if it's a block set, I'm in a lot of trouble. Whereas a set like this, I'm in a better position to handle if it's not a block set. Because if it blocks my Umbreon dies, and I don't do enough damage to KO it if it's defensive, and it just transforms into me, and then I lose my Umbreon, which is kind of the key to my game. Greninja's in a much better position to just immediately exert pressure. Isn't likely to get one hit KO'd on any hard predict unless it's like an Aura Sphere, which I don't think you normally do into an Umbreon without any sort of boosts. It just doesn't do enough damage. So I go straight to Greninja. It's going for a bulk up set. This makes a lot of sense as opposed to like a Dragon Dance set. He's trying to get his defense up as well as his attack, just so that the foul play isn't as painful. If he Dragon Dances, then foul play just does more damage. But he's at least trying to keep the damage output neutral with doing a bulk up set. I go for Dark Pulse. Unfortunately, he's running the Colbur Berry again, which is a smart bring. Really important survival here by the Greninja. This is this is why I appreciate utilizing extra EVs and making sure you put them places they can be helpful. If nothing else, in HP. My Greninja, had 36 leftover or I had 40 leftover EVs. I threw 36 of them in HP, 4 in special defense. I'm glad those were there. Those were obviously going to be relevant. This came down to a couple of hit points in terms of survivability. Greninja's literally living by 3%, so really significant because the thing here is Mew can either Dark Pulse me, or Mew can either Drain Punch me for no health back realistically, or it can flee. Either way, I get to get another Dark Pulse off, unless it had a priority move, which it didn't, thankfully. So I get rid of Blastoise. Salamence comes in. I obviously have to hard switch out of that into Rotom. And the reason I go Rotom here is I don't know what the damage output from Dragon Claw is yet. And so I didn't want to take, say, 36% on my Umbreon from a Dragon Claw, because then my Umbreon gets 2-hit KO'd and I lose. There's no value in this game for Rotom to bring. It's not going to outspeed either of the pieces on the field. I don't have anything to trick at this point. Heavy duty boots don't really mean anything. Mew's already used its item. I don't want to take away the choice locking on the Salamence. I don't have Toxic, so there's no value left in this Rotom, so I need to sack it for momentum to give Umbreon safe entry to be able to click Wish. And so it just made sense to me to throw away this Rotom because it was not going to contribute anything, get a free window for Umbreon to get in here, and Umbreon to click Wish. So 27% or 23% was actually really good to know. That's not a very offensive Salamence. It's actually really huge for me because that means it can't break Umbreon. Umbreon is now just a wall it's not going to get past. I don't even have to protect on this turn because I'm out of crit range. Crit range is going to max out around 35, 36% on me, I would guess. So my 44% is enough to happily sit in front of it. And I get to foul play again, do a bunch of damage, and then get a wish in there. And then I'm going to wish again here because I want to try to get my health back up. And now I need to 1v1 this Mew in case it tried to go for an immediate attack here. I'm going to foul play it. That was a really surprising amount of damage output. Mew is going to take super effective damage from the foul play. Mew can't run a negative attack nature or negative EVs or zero EV attack. It needs that physical attack. So it's just really vulnerable to foul play. Even if it's very defensively invested, it's still going to do a lot to the Mew, doing 66% there, which is huge. Because at +1 on a max defense Umbreon, it just doesn't have enough damage output to out heal the damage I'm doing to it. So foul play does a lot there. I'm going to do something cautious here. I'm going to wish just because I'm at a point to win this now. I don't want to do anything stupid. I'm right on the verge of winning my first championship. There's a small window where he gets consecutive crits and all of a sudden my Umbreon faints. And so I just don't want to take any risks. There's no reason to take risks at this point. I've worked hard all season to get to a spot where I win the game. So I'm going to be extra cautious for a turn and click wish.
Now I'm happy to click foul play because I am out of the danger zone. I get a crit. It was a foregone conclusion at that point, but it was nice to get the crit anyway. And so I successfully claim my first championship title in I think my 10th draft season total. Really happy this team came together. I was really, really proud of this team in its performance all season. I obviously ran into some road bumps uh, in week one where I just did not perform well. I ran into issues with an Amoonguss that I couldn't break. I was really dumb and I sent my Landorus out turn one against a Galarian Zapdos, which just happily took that Defiant boost from the Intimidate and just immediately slaughtered my Landorus. And so I could not have had a worse beginning to this season. It was just a really bad loss. And so to bounce back from that and win 12 consecutive games to claim the championship was just really nice. I'm really happy with the performance of pretty much every piece I drafted this season. Everything kind of made a contribution in some way or another. Mega Mawile led the league or led the division in KOs, I think at 15. So it was just really productive week to week. Landorus wasn't always blasting off with kills week to week, but there were several times it really came in clutch. Its Scarf set did a lot of work, or it got a setup set a couple of times where it was just really well positioned to be effective. Umbreon turned into a really strong defensive piece. It wasn't as stagnant as my concern was in the beginning of the season. My concern was Umbreon would just sit there and not create opportunities for other pieces to get on the field. But because I was able to have Florges and because Florges came to a lot of matches, my Umbreon was well suited to run Baton Pass a lot. So it could do like a Wish Protect, Foul Play, Baton Pass, and create momentum off the wishes. And then Florges could kind of serve as the cleric role if I felt I needed it in that matchup. Greninja was fine. Greninja wasn't my ideal pick for that spot. I would have preferred to have had, I believe, Cinderace over Umbreon or over Greninja just because I already had water, I already had dark, and so it was just kind of fulfilling the same role I already had occupied. Whereas Cinderace would have just been a better suited fire type, I think, to my team. Entei did fine. There was a couple weeks Entei really did pop off, but in terms of momentum, which feeds really well with my Mega Mawile, I think Cinderace probably would have been a more ideal piece. But no complaints. Greninja showed up a few times and was really effective. It was contributed to a couple of needed wins midway through the season. Can't complain about its output. Rotom Wash really proves its value as pretty much the best Rotom. I've used Rotom Heat before. I've been stuck with Rotom Freeze quite a bit. Even tried out Rotom Fan, but Rotom Wash really showed up as a strong defensive piece and kind of served that role more or less every week that it showed. And I couldn't really ask for more out of it. Regidrago only showed up twice, but man, was he effective in those two appearances. I nearly brought him to this match. I considered running a Trick Ring Target on the Rotom and trying to slap that onto the Clefable. I think he actually could have panned out in this match because he was trying to use the Clefable as a check to the Mega Mawile. So the Clefable was trying to work overtime to check something it doesn't really handle super well in the first place. So there was an avenue for the Regidrago to actually be effective here, but ultimately it didn't come. Still happy with the matches it showed up for. I really thought it put in work. And then the bench couldn't bring it. I tried to look for opportunities to bring it. Unfortunately, Landorus is just by far the better ground type, so it just wasn't good opportunities for the Trapinch, but maybe next season. So complete the PGF season at 12-1 if we count playoffs, claim my first championship, earn automatic promotion to the top division for next season when that kicks off in 2022. And that wraps up this series. I'm finally able to finish a draft series league with a championship win as the final video. So it's a really cool thing. Thank you to everyone that has hung out with me for these videos. I hope you enjoyed this league of battles. I have others that I'm trying to finish up. I have others I want to kind of come back to, and I have others that are ongoing. So I intend to be back with more videos. So do stay tuned for more.